Welcome back to the new in Unity 6.0 updates. Let's go on to Editor and Workflow. They implemented the drag and drop feature for files and assets from Unity to an external application on Linux. They added the Asset Manager for Unity packages into the Package Manager Services Content Management section. This package allows users to easily browse, upload, and import assets across Unity projects. They added a new editor, UPM log file, command line argument that specifies a custom file path for UPM log output. For more info, refer to the Unity editor command line arguments. They added a piercing menu that you can use to select game objects that overlap other game objects. To open the piercing menu, hold down Control and right-click in the scene view. The piercing menu displays a list of all selectable game objects under the cursor. I personally have used this a lot. Added additional app IDs to Steam ID provider editor settings for multiple app ID support. They introduced build profiles to create multiple custom build configurations for each target platform. The build profile diagnostic checkbox is no longer available because the build settings window has been replaced with the build profile window. They integrated new build profile icons, and they modified the create menu to replace the C# script menu item with 3 separate options: monobehavior script, scriptable object script, and blank script. And they improved the create menu to reduce the amount of items at the root of the menu. The menu is now ordered alphabetically, and almost all items are now in a category. They added the Scene View context menu. You can now access new context menus in the scene view by right-clicking or using a customizable keyboard shortcut. These menus, created with the UI Toolkit and extensible in C#, offer easy access to frequently used commands. They added the refresh the scene only when the editor is in focus option to the scene view preferences. Enable this option to refresh the scene view only when the editor is in focus. They added the ability to bind a keyboard shortcut to make transitions between animator states. They added OpenType font feature support. Currently, only kerning is enabled. They added a new cameras overlay to replace the camera preview. You can use the cameras overlay to take first-person control of cameras and manage cameras in the scene view. And they replaced most OS contextual menus with the UI Toolkit version. They added the color checker, which is a tool used to calibrate lighting in post-process. The color checker is an object that the user can add through Game Object, Rendering, Color Checker tool. The tool is meant only as a production tool for lighting artists and won't be saved in build. Enabled the editor to show different license notification modules, and added a property collection attribute, which you can use to implement custom drawers for collections. And they added a new tool for light placement using the pan, zoom, and orbit controls of the camera. For more info, refer to the View and Control a Light from its Perspective link. And finally, they improved and standardized right-click context menus across items and workflows. Improvements include more consistent interactions, sorting optimizations, and an optional search field. They added a new launch screen for the Linux editor. They added async test support with documentation and support for setup and teardown to the test framework. They added editor analytics, event tracking for refresh access, and new link button clicks. They added the Enable Play Mode Tooltips toggle in the Preferences window. This toggle enables tooltips in the editor while it's in play mode. They added the Helper bar, which displays useful keyboard shortcuts to the status bar. Enable the Helper bar from the General tab of the Preferences window. They added the option for Scene View Preferences to only refresh the scene view when the editor is in focus. They added an optional priority argument to shortcut and clutch shortcut attributes. They added a rebindable shortcut possibility for the Game View Stats button to the Shortcuts Manager. They added stage, scope, and dynamic information to keywords for the frame debugger. They added the possibility of running tests in a specified order from a test list. They added the Focus Window Changed callback to the Editor class. They changed to title bars on Windows for Editor. Improves upon existing title bar feature by adding to it. They displayed one-time setup and one-time teardown durations in the XML result under Outputs. Enabled a shortcut to enable or disable a capture for the frame debugger. They enabled connection to Perforce servers using accounts with MFA. They enabled copying a foldout or entire event for the frame debugger. They enabled seeing the original and used shaders in an event for the frame debugger. This is useful for events that use paths or fallback to an assigned fallback shader. They enabled setting the minimum and maximum values for the level slider for the frame debugger. They enabled shortcut binding to mouse wheel turns for Shortcut Manager. And they enabled viewing the individual meshes in a SRP batch inside the mesh preview for the frame debugger. And finally, they split the texture format for the frame debugger into color format and depth stencil format. That was all the editor stuff in new in Unity 6.0. I am Michael at Ready Play Games, and I hope you learned something. See you next time.